Welcome to our webinar on digital texts. This is part of a UDL and AT Tools series. My name is Vianney Gutierrez, and I'm a digital learning specialist with BPS Technology.
My name is Mary Shannon Marcella, and I'm the coordinator of assistive technology for Boston Public. So today we're going to do an overview of categories of technology, the roles of AT and IT, and we're going to focus on digital texts, what and why, as well as some tools that provide them, with additional resources at the end.
Part of the reason why we're talking about this is that we want to think about equity and accessibility. This is a graphic from the National Education Technology Plan from the U.S. Department of Education. It states, equity in education means increasing all students' access to educational opportunities with a focus on closing achievement gaps and removing barriers that students face. These can be barriers they face based on disability, ethnicity, national origin, sexual orientation or gender identity, English language abilities, religion, socioeconomic status, or geographical location. And the next piece is accessibility. This refers to design of things such as apps, devices, materials, and environments that support and enable access to content and educational activities for all learners. When we think about technology, it's important to distinguish what its purpose is. So there are 5 distinct categories here that you might see emerge in education. The first is instructional technology. Now, part of my role is that I'm talking about tools for learning. So this is based on research into human learning and communication. You might find this with tools such as Khan Academy and Google Classroom. What Mary does is assistive technology. These are tools that increase or maintain the functional capabilities of a person with a disability. So this might be something like Read and Write or Bookshare. The next thing, which we use a lot in our work, is productivity technology. This is software, hardware, and related systems that help people work more productively. Now, we're pretty familiar with this. We use Google Drive and we use Microsoft Word and such. And the next piece, which my department also addresses, is information technology. This deals with networks. These are tools that deliver information to you. So these include your web browsers like Chrome, Safari, Firefox, and the like. And finally, we have medical technology. We aren't responsible for this, but we will see this in our classrooms. These are devices that sustain essential body function, such as respirators, insulin pumps, and cochlear implants.
So we're going to look a little bit closer at the definition of assistive technology. According to the IDEA, AT devices and services are defined as the following. A device is any piece of equipment or product, whether acquired commercially, modified, or customized, that is to increase, maintain, or improve functional capabilities of a child with disabilities. In Boston Public Schools, we refer to this for communication as well as the academic aspects. This might include a communication book, an iPad with a speech-generating application, a Chromebook or a computer, as well as hearing assistive devices. An AT service is defined as any service that directly assists a child with a disability in the selection, acquisition, or use of an assistive technology device. For example, functional evaluation in customary environments, training for students, family, and staff.
Part of the reason why Mary and I are here today is because our 2 departments are united by Universal Design for Learning. So Universal Design for Learning includes both instructional and assistive technology and its 3 principles. And it's not just about students with disabilities. It's about access for all learners, but it does start with those learners in the margins. UDL is known by its 3 principles: representation, action, expression, and engagement. Representation is how information is being presented to learners. So this is learners taking information in. Action expression is how they're navigating a learning environment. So it's how they're expressing what they know. This can be in the form of writing, in the form of speech, dance, or other forms of communication. And finally, engagement. This has often been called the most critical piece. This deals with affective components of learning, with emotion. How is it that we are self-aware of our own learning abilities as well as collaborating and interacting with others?
So now we're going to talk a little bit more about the role of assistive technology in Boston. My team is currently responsible for all students throughout the Boston Public Schools that have IEPs or 504 plans that dictate their need for accommodations to access the curriculum. We do consultations and evaluations on students to determine those needs, and then we write them into the IEPs. In addition, we provide professional development to our related service providers, teachers, paras, parents, and any other staff interested. We help to develop low-tech solutions and teach others to do the same, as well as facilitate trainings, work on interdisciplinary teams, and hold office hours for additional consultation.
My team really does a lot of work around technology in Boston. One of the big things is that we provide coaching and professional learning around instructional technology. This can be functional and operational uses of technology, such as Google Apps, or it can be more strategic, such as doing work with project-based learning or computer science. We currently are spearheading the initiative for computer science across K-12. We also serve as the facilitator and community liaison with technology organizations such as MassQ, Exploring Computer Science, Scratch, Apple, Google, Microsoft, Adobe, and more. And we also provide guidance on selecting instructional technologies and apps and instructional design expertise in blended learning course design. So if you are interested in designing a course or thinking about professional learning that involves some technology component, we would be the people that you would talk to. There's also another part in our department that helps a lot with troubleshooting, and this would be our help desk. So when we think about digital text, this is the focus of our topic today. So people with disabilities frequently experience barriers in the use of printed materials, digital materials, and technology. Some of these barriers might be in textbooks, digital documents like Google Docs, websites, apps, learning delivery systems, and electronic devices. Now, in an ideal world, these are designed from the start for the widest range of learners, but that is not always the case. So this is why we're talking about this today. So when we think about accessible educational materials, these are quotes that come from the AIM Center at CAST. AIM, accessible educational materials, are print and technology-based materials that include textbooks and related core materials that are designed or enhanced in a way that makes them usable across the widest range of learners. So we're thinking about how we can make this accessible across multiple formats. 3 key reasons why this is critical. One of them was mentioned earlier, equity and accessibility. We want to provide equitable access for all learners. We want to provide them with options for perceiving information, and this is tied to the representation principle. And finally, we want to improve the quality and availability of AIM and accessible technologies for all.
So the first tool we're going to talk about today is TumbleBooks. It is a resource that is used online and is available through the Boston Public Schools library program. TumbleBooks is an online library of picture books that are animated for increased engagement. Some of them have sounds or music to them, as well as motion on the screen. The books can be read to students or they can read them themselves, and they're aimed between kindergarten and 6th grade students. We are given access through our Boston Public Schools digital backpack, and as you can see on mid-screen, there is the link to the backpack. We'll show you what that looks like signing in on the next slide. One of the advantages of TumbleBooks is that you can actually create playlists for a student that will play continuously. So if you have a 20-minute reading block and you want multiple books to continue playing, or the students have access to reading them, you can set it up so that they play all in a row. There's also additional related tools with different books, including quizzes, additional vocabulary, worksheets that are built right in. So this slide shows the Clever sign-in, which is where you will access TumbleBooks. As you can see in the mid-left of your screen, surrounded by red, is the icon for TumbleBooks. Once you click on this screen, the bottom right picture is TumbleBooks actually opening. And again, you'll sign in through Clever and you'll need your ID and password to get in. Here's one example of a book that you searched and came up. This is Ramona Quimby. It gives you some summary of the book so you know what you're looking at, as well as some options on the left side to read it online, add to the favorites, create a book report, or even to take some quizzes after the students have read it. It also gives you book details on the far right side, so the author, if there is an illustrator, publisher, word count, appropriate reading level, and all of that information. This is the book actually being opened, so this is what the student would see. One of the nice features of TumbleBooks is as it is read, it will actually highlight, so it gives the student some built-in accessibility tools as well. This is another example of a book, obviously for a younger student. The younger students in the picture books have a little bit more animation. So as you can see the options, you can play this one. The butterflies move on the screen. There's some sound effects. There's a lot more to this. And on the left side, you see there's more options along for read online and add to playlist. There's games that relate to the reading in some way, and lesson plans that you can actually integrate into your classroom to go along with the books.
The next tool that we want to share is Bookshare. Bookshare is a tool that is available for everybody in Boston Public Schools. What it is an online library that provides access to digitized versions of over 500,000 books and newspapers. Unlike the entire district accessing this, it is very particular about students with a print disability using this tool. So students with a print disability who qualify are those whose disability inhibits or prevents them from reading traditional print materials. So this might be students with vision, physical, and learning disabilities. Teachers and students in BPS can access this because we have an organizational account. Teachers and school staff are classified as sponsors. Students are members. And the sponsors, in that case the teachers, can add both sponsors and members. However, only students can have both individual and organizational membership. The advantage to having an individual membership is the ability to be able to read independently, so students can go in and download books on their own. Now, if you have a student who's under the age of 18, you will need parent permission. So some of the things you can do in Bookshare is that you can search for books by category, look at special collections, and browse some existing lists. Teachers can curate reading lists to share with an organization or specific students, or they can download books for students, or students can download on their own. Now, what's really important about Bookshare, and it's different from TumbleBooks in this regard, is that there's multiple file formats available. And now Bookshare is an assistive technology tool because it gives specialized file formats like DAISY, Braille Ready File, DAISY Audio, and it also provides some that are more common and not necessarily tied to AT, which are in EPUB, which is a digital ebook file, MP3 audio, pretty self-explanatory, as well as Bookshare's web reader. So this will be chosen based on the student's needs. And some of the ways you can read Bookshare books are on Chromebooks and iPads. It's not exclusive to those, but those are two fairly common devices that are used with Bookshare. For Chromebooks, you can use the web reader, or you can use Read and Write's EPUB reader or Medium for Chrome. You can also listen to audio files through Google Drive. Now keep in mind, Google Drive for BPS, you have unlimited storage. So you can really store lots of large files in there. On the iPad side, iBooks is the popular reader that you can use. But if you want something that's more high-end, pro users do recommend Read2Go and VoiceStream Reader. This screenshot is an example of Bookshare's main homepage. You can see in the top right corner that you can log in with your email, which would be your bostonpublicschools.org or bostonk12.org email. You will have to create your own password. When you search for books, you can see near the top in red, you can search by title, author, or ISBN, and filter by category. There's lots of different categories here, including textbooks. Because of student data concerns, I'm just going to show you a quick screenshot of a test student. Now you notice I have him selected in yellow here, and you see his grade level and his type of disability. You can also see it gives me certain options that this book title is available in. It says Daisy is available, as well as Braille Ready, EPUB, and audio. I've chosen Daisy here. Once it's ready, you'll see on the bottom left that it says the file is available. I click on that and it downloads it to my desktop. When you want to share a reading list with students, you can create some that are private to just you and your students, or you can create some that everyone in your organization can see. An advantage to doing that, especially when we're thinking about grade level texts, is that other teachers can see them and they don't have to curate the entire playlist over again. You can see I've created one for expeditionary learning texts, and 2 of them are listed here.
So the last tool that we're going to talk about today explicitly is Overdrive. Overdrive is a great resource offered by the Boston Public Libraries. It works very similar to a library card where you go in and borrow a book. The student must have either an ID or a library card and some type of internet connection. Books are available to borrow for 7 or 14 days, just like if a student went to the library and actually borrowed one. One of the great features of this tool is that it's available cross-platforms. So there's a very easy to use app as well as a web page and several different ways to access it. You can renew titles immediately after your 7 or 14 days expires, only if there is no wait list or what we call a hold. If there is a hold, you have to go back into the queue or go back into the line and wait for it to be available. Very similar to how checking a book out of the library actually works. So in our left side of the screen, we have the Overdrive homepage. This is where you go to sign in and create an account. On the right side, you can pick your local library. So all of our students should have access to the Boston Public Libraries with their library card or their student ID, but teachers would have access likely to their home libraries if they're members, which expands your search in case something is checked out. So that's a great advantage. Here is the screen to sign in with your library card. So as we said, you do need some type of library card to be able to sign in, and it works just like checking a book out of the library. There's 2 formats for the books that you can check out. There are audio files as well as ebooks. Here's just an example. We used the same book that Rhiannon used on the book drive example, Esperanza Rising. So as you can see in the top left, there's audiobook versus ebook. And it looks like right now for this one, the audiobook is able to be borrowed. It tells you right here in the middle in blue. And this one is available for 14 days. So again, if the student or teacher borrows the book for 14 days and doesn't finish, as long as there's no hold for the next person to get it, you can renew right away and keep the book. Otherwise, you might have to wait a few weeks, which is one of the disadvantages.
To conclude this webinar, there's a few additional resources we'd like to share with you. We recognize that there are many out there. Perhaps you're already exploring some of those. Some of them include Google Play, which you can get free books and also books that you pay for. A lot of those free books are those that are in the public domain, such as works by Shakespeare and Edgar Allan Poe. For Learning Ally, you can get access to audiobooks and other digital files. And then, of course, there's the amazing Perkins Library, which many of our visually impaired students do take advantage of. We also have some alternative books like Mighty Book and Tar Heel Reader. And finally, we want to acknowledge the hard work of our Boston Public Schools departments, such as Library Services, English Language Arts, Social Studies, Science and Technology and Engineering, World Languages, and of course my department, because all of these departments and certainly more do provide access to digital texts, whether it's in the form of primary sources, accessible websites, or other digital search options. Thank you so much for joining us today. We hope you've learned a little bit about digital texts and you will promote them in your classroom and across BPS.